it is.
We have a key.
Yeah.
And we have an engineer, and we have a car, so we have an interview.
What's that?
They've come up from Mazda, one of the main engineers for here in North America. And actually, I don't know, do you work for the other market, like globally? Like, I guess you have to, some interaction, but mainly your product, your final product is here, right?
Right. So I'm responsible for making sure that the cars drive right for our market. So I go and see what the other markets are doing, and then we argue about who's right, and we end up with like 3 or 4 different specs for the world, because all the different markets kind of have a different idea how the car should drive.
And actually, well, we've been here a couple of days in San Diego with Mazda and Dave and the rest of the team, and like during your presentation yesterday was very interesting to hear how the cars actually are like tuned completely different for each market, the way people really like them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're here for the first test drive of this car, actually 2 cars, the second generation CX-5, right?
That's right, yep.
Which the older one came not very long ago, really.
It's been, I think, about 5 years, and it's been a huge success, much bigger than we planned for it to be.
So, but usually the cycles are 7 years, right? Like, why is everything getting shorter? I mean, competition, like, you want to push more product. I mean, technology is pushing you harder, I guess, too.
We're pretty aggressive in how quickly we're trying to evolve our cars and our brand, and we actually are doing, not only are we updating the cars pretty frequently, but we're doing sort of mid-cycle updates almost every year on every car.
Yeah.
So, like, there was a 2016 model, then we did a bunch of changes for the 2016 and a half model, which was just before this.
Wow.
And so there was a big, we never stop improving.
Never stop working. Yeah, I was gonna say, because I mean, the cars are like rolling out of the production factories, like of the production, really fast. So let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, yesterday you have a very interesting, I'm not gonna say long, presentation, but it was like very complete design, marketing, driving, but I mean, we're gonna have like 10-15 minutes, so I want to try to make as much credit possible for that. But the thing that caught more my attention, I think, was like, even though I've driven and talked to you several times, is that the emphasis that you guys put in doing things different, but not different in a bad way, different like in a very good way, because obviously your success is the result of that. So can you talk a little bit about that, like how it goes into producing like a mid-size crossover SUV where there's a huge competition, and then still make it completely different from the rest of the...
Yeah, well, we really focus, instead of on looking at what everyone else is doing and trying to compete and do the same things, we really try to focus on the human experience in the car, and what do we need to do to make the interaction between the machine and the person as good as possible. So we actually spend a lot of effort studying people and how people work and how people move, and that sort of informs how we should make a car move and how we should make a car react to people.
I mean, starting with the sitting position, which from your presentation again yesterday, like it will be the ideal situation would be that I'll be floating, right? Like having no gravity in space.
Right.
Well, you try to simulate that here.
Yeah. So what we did with the driving position, you notice if you drive a lot of different cars, they all have very different seating positions. The steering wheels are far away or close or up or down. And, rather than just trying to get one guy's opinion of which one is the best, we really studied, what do all humans have in common? What's sort of the natural body position when there's no forces on you? And we actually studied astronauts in space when they're floating, what joint angles they have, and built the car and the driving position around being able to get to that most
the natural position, right?
Right. That's where just the most comfortable. You're going to be in this position for a 2 or 3 hour drive. You want to really be comfortable the whole time, and the more comfortable you are, the more energy you have left for paying attention to the road and reacting when you need to react. So it ultimately, makes you a better driver, makes you safer. Yeah.
And then we go into the dynamics and the experience of driving the cars and enjoying the car. Like first, like obviously through the senses, like looking at it, like feeling it, touching it, smelling it even, right? Like because you even like the new car smell, you work with that
we
too.
Did a test where we had to smell like 22 different leather samples to find one that we thought smelled the best, which was actually really hard to remember what was the 15th smell compared to the 22nd smell. But yeah, we go that deep, really trying to get the whole experience right.
Yeah. Then let's talk a little bit about the engine and like the regular things that the engine pretty much didn't change, right, from that
It's
past generation?
mostly a carryover. So the Skyactiv 2.5 liter, we try to make all of our engines not only really efficient, but really responsive and really direct, so that there's no lag when you step on the gas. And that engine is a really good balance of enough low-end torque and a very smooth torque curve and really direct throttle response. So we made some really small changes inside the engine, mostly to the piston. Ones that I showed you, the piston, you literally cannot see the changes. They're microscopic, but they reduce the friction and they make the engine resist knocking better, so that we can tune it to be have better throttle response.
Yeah, and I guess that like the level of attention to that detail that you cannot even see,
Right.
That makes like the huge difference. So I mean, how do you get to that point? I mean, how do you start like analyzing things to that level of changing something that you cannot even see? I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we have sort of a restlessness where we're never really satisfied with where we're at, and so the guys who are working on the piston, they just keep looking at that one thing. You're like, oh, we could do this a little bit better. We could do that a little bit better, and we try to just as we come up with new things we can do, just roll them in as quickly as we can. So yeah, we never really stop development of the car. We'll start production. We're still working on what we're going to do next year. It just never stops.
It must be fun watching that. Like, I would be like really fun to see like a time lapse of that. Like,
makes a really complicated development schedule, because I've got in my head stuff for 5 different years and all the different cars we're doing.
That's another great skill that you guys have. I don't have it for sure. That's organizing very complex thoughts to begin with. But anyway, so like, what's the horsepower? What's the performance numbers for this car?
So the peak numbers, I think it's 187 horsepower and 184, 185 foot-pounds of torque. But really, the difference between this version of the engine and last year's engine, those numbers are almost exactly the same. Yeah. I think it went up 2 or 3 horsepower at the peak, but the way the car drives in normal driving is quite a bit different, because we focused on the response delay, how quickly it downshifts, what the shift points are, and in real world driving, those peak numbers don't mean that much. They sort of determine sort of the cap of the most you're going to be able to get out of it. Yeah. But most of the time you're not at full throttle. What matters is when I give it a little bit of gas, how long do I have to wait before it actually does something? And we're worried about milliseconds, thousands of a second. We figured out that humans can detect a response delay of about 1/4 of a second. And so we try to get all of our response delays under 1/4 of a second, so that people don't feel any delay. They just feel connected to the car. Yeah.
And this is a crossover, so like a family car, room for 5 people, cargo space and all that. But also it's a Mazda, so you have to have like the excitement of driving it, the fun of driving it. Yeah. And you get, I mean, I have to say it. I mean, we drove it yesterday for like 2-3 hours, and it's an engaging car to drive. I mean, the steering is really direct. The throttle response also, and even though it's not a sports car, but you can get that feeling.
You can still have fun with it.
Absolutely, yeah. One thing I have to say, and I was missing, I wish there were like a little bit of
the paddle shifters.
Yeah, I have to say it.
Yeah, we keep going back and forth on whether we should do that, because we don't. Will anybody actually use them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can actually put them on.
Oh, okay.
So if you just buy the paddles and put them on there, I think the wiring's probably there.
Okay, that's a thought. So another thing that you guys do very different is the way you not only benchmark or compare cars, because here we are, and actually you have a separate presentation on top of the 2-hour presentation in the morning for the cars that you were going to compare with. Right. And like most people, when they go actually shopping for this car, will probably never think about a Lexus NX200T, BMW X1, Mercedes-Benz GLA, and what's the other one?
Audi Q3.
Oh, the Audi Q3. Yeah. So most people will probably compare a Mazda with a Toyota, Honda, and something. But that's another thing that you are very confident, because of your work, of what you can compare it to. I mean, you're going a level higher than most people would think.
We're really trying to push our cars up to that level, and we're actually seeing our dealers see a lot of people trading in BMWs and Audis, etc. on these cars. So I think that plan is working out. So yeah, we don't spend a lot of time when we're developing the car. We actually don't spend a lot of time benchmarking the other cars either. We really just focus on what does the driver need, and what the people in the car really need to enjoy the car, and build up some sort of fundamental truths about people, right? And then we bring in the competitors at the end and say, okay, how did we do? And we were pleasantly surprised about how our car drove compared to the BMW.
And again, I have to say it, I drove all of them, but like I drove the GLA first. I mean, it's a great car still, and like, but then you get it, and then like, because what completes the story is when you go to the pricing, which is the bottom line. Like people are gonna make the decisions on. And when you think about like this car, I think top price is about 37, right?
Yeah.
So fully loaded with tons of technology, safety technology, leather, and like really nice materials and all that. And then the other cars, you go, yeah, they're nice cars, but like really, you have to pay a lot more.
And really where we find the difference is because we focus so much on the directness and controllability of the car's response. A lot of those cars, first step on the gas, there's a little hesitation and then kind of a surge, and they're focusing on different things with those cars. Obviously, every different car company has sort of their different approach to doing cars. But from our viewpoint of how we think a car should react to a person and how controllable it should be, we see a big gap where we think we're doing that better than those guys are.
Excellent. Well, this was a very short drive of the car, like a couple miles, but again, we drove it yesterday for over 200 miles on the road and on the city, and really, I mean, it's an amazing car. And I think one of the things that Mazda, another challenge that probably you have is like a lot of people, I mean, you're doing great, but you could do it even better if more people get into your cars. Right?
Yeah. The challenge, especially as our brand is moving, if people haven't paid attention to Mazda in 10 years, they're going to be really surprised about what we're building now, because we're building such a better car than we did 10 years ago. So for people who pay attention to the industry, it's not a big surprise. But there's a lot of people who just aren't even considering us, and our challenge is to get them in the driver's seat and just feel this, and I think that'll convince them.
Well, but this is a really good test for that, and people watching and really should, like, at least, as you said, give it a chance. Take a look, So one more thing, because a lot of people are asking me, what happened to Mazda Speed?
It's one of those things that when we have the right pieces in place that we can build a good Mazda Speed car, we still want to do that.
But there's not one in the market right now.
There isn't one in the market.
The Mazda 3
right
was, or even the Miata. The MX-5.
Right. So usually when we do a Mazda Speed car, it's because we have this car and we have this powertrain, we have all the sort of pieces in place that we can do it. They're a really low volume car, so we want to execute all our cars at a certain level, but we can't afford to develop like a whole new engine for a car we're only going to make 10,000 of. So we kind of, whenever the parts that we have line up in a way that we can execute something good enough to wear that badge, then we do it. But we don't have the pieces in place at the moment.
So, well, thank you very much today for everything, and I'm sure you're gonna go back and keep working on the next car.
Yep.
And the next presentation.
We never stop.
Thank you very much.
You bet.